Huh?
Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope takes the insane concept introduced in the first game and twists it even further. With an epic story, a more fluid combat system, some new characters, and a whole new way of exploring the world. But how does the freeform combat compare to the more tightly designed system of the first game? And is it satisfying to explore the worlds? Well, that's what I'm here to answer in GameXplain's in-depth review of Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope. Just as Mario and his pals are kicking back to relax after the first game, all hell breaks loose when a mysterious wizard named Cursa starts spreading darkness throughout the galaxy, turning once lush forests into desolate wastelands and causing sunny seaside towns to be decimated by storms. Naturally, Mario, Luigi, Peach and their Rabbid counterparts have to go on a galaxy-wide adventure to put a stop to it all. The stakes have never been higher and they're executed perfectly with a narrative that's significantly stronger than the first game. And it's only bolstered by the addition of actual voice dialogue, including a mostly good new voice cast. Beepo and the new ship AI Genie are now fully voiced, and the Rabbids use actual words now, saying a few phrases that bring their characters to life even more.
Just what I was about to suggest to our friend here. What do we call your kind? Aha! How about Rabbid Lumas?
Beepo carries the whole narrative with some expressive voice acting, and I laughed every single time Rabbid Mario spoke in his new thick New York accent.
Now you fly!
Unfortunately, Rabbid Luigi's voice wasn't as good, sounding more like an annoying adult than the more childlike voice I was expecting.
Ran the table!
While the story is quite dark, there's plenty of comedy thrown throughout the cutscenes and writing, creating a Saturday morning cartoon-like vibe in some of the cutscenes that definitely got some chuckles out of me. The improvements just keep coming when talking about the overhauled combat system, and it is unbelievable how satisfying it feels. And one of the main reasons is the removal of the grid system from the previous game, as you now have full control of the characters with their movement only being restricted within a specific radius. Using a cursor on a controller never feels 100% right, so the change in movement is very welcome. It offered so much more maneuverability during combat because I could move a character into the radius of another, use them to jump off and glide to a high point, and still continue to move the second character. Whereas in the first game, your movement was locked in once you selected where to go. In one move, you can use a spark to buff your weapon, slide into an enemy, spring off a teammate, stomp on another enemy, shoot two different enemies mid-air at once with Mario, then switch to Rabbid Mario, slide into two more enemies dealing AoE damage, use a spark to push them off the map, and then finish them off with your AoE explosive fists. The sheer amount of options at my disposal was fantastic, and I loved how much freedom I was given during the combat. You have a party of 3 characters in battle, and in total there are 9 characters to choose from. And with 30 different sparks to choose from, the amount of freedom you have in combat is staggering, and I was constantly mixing different team and spark combinations to best suit the battle ahead. To break it down, each character has unique movement abilities like a team jump or a dash that they can pull off in every turn, in addition to having 2 action points that can be used to shoot your weapon or activate a spark or ability. So since Luigi is a sniper, his whole game plan is to stick to the high ground and deal insane amounts of damage in one shot. Whereas Edge or Rabbid Mario are both close range attackers that can deal AoE damage to enemies. Every character has a unique playstyle, and I'm happy to say that any party combination seems to be viable. I relied on Rabbid Peach's healing abilities pretty heavily early on, but reduced their usage when I started to better understand the combat system, and learned how to take out multiple enemies in one move, optimizing my party's abilities and movement to deal as much damage as I could. Each character has 4 skill trees that can drastically improve their performance. You can build characters in different ways, focusing on their movement, their abilities, or their weapon damage, or you can mix and match all 4 if you like. I focused on building my characters to fit certain roles. So Luigi was a glass cannon that I focused on his movement and his Steely Stare ability. So I'd use Team Jump to get him to the high ground, activate Steely Stare, and then he would shoot 3 enemies on the next turn if they moved. Another big addition are Rabbid Lumas called Sparks, which is something I would never thought I'd say. There are 30 in total and you can equip 2 to a character, with each augmenting your character in some way. Some are straight buffs like increased weapon damage or improved defense, where others imbue your weapon with a particular element that can be useful against certain enemies. My favourites though were the AoE elemental sparks that would cover enemies in ooze or blow them off the map with wind. There are others that work best with specific characters. One in particular would reflect damage, so I would put that on my close range characters as they were most likely to get attacked. All of these systems meld perfectly in the boss fights, and they are the most memorable fights in the game because they have unique mechanics. Some boss fights are multi-phase with the terrain changing on each phase, but my favourite outside of the final fight was Bedrock. In this fight I dealt barely any damage to them, so I had to lure them onto platforms with explosives and get them to do their AoE attack to blow up the platform they were standing on. And while I won't spoil anything, I absolutely loved the final fight. It was epic and a great way to put my skills to the test. The combat system's philosophy is all about player expression, giving the player a crazy amount of options to creatively dispatch enemies. Even on the easier battles, I had fun challenging myself with completing the fight in just one turn. Outside of the combat, the world has been dramatically upgraded too. Although exploring the levels in the first game was somewhat enjoyable, they were held back by linear designs and narrow corridors that featured simple puzzles. And I never really felt that compelling, acting as more of a break from the combat than anything. However, the worlds in Sparks of Hope are both much larger and more open, and are wonderfully crafted with side quests, challenges, secrets and puzzles hidden around every corner. You now have the freedom to roam around wherever you like with more direct control over your party. And yes, that includes full camera control too, which is great for taking in the lush, gorgeous worlds, with my favourite being Palette Prime, which has a nice mixture of wide open grasslands and a dense forest, which is perfect for this time of year. I love the theme of each world and I had a blast exploring them, and the rewards only make it better, like puzzles that lead to collectibles, or side quests and battles that reward you with tokens that can be used to purchase skins and star potions which upgrade Sparks. My favourites however were the battles, the best of which were the ones that locked me into a certain party composition. As much as I enjoyed the freedom of the combat, these battles were a nice change of pace. There are enemies in the overworld that work like JRPG encounters, and they were fun because the combat system was so engaging, but their layouts are very basic and they often repeat themselves, so after a while I avoided them. In general, the puzzles never gave me too much hassle, which I like. I don't think a game like this needs in-depth puzzles, as they would have ground the pacing down to a standstill. There were a few in the later game that took me a few minutes to figure out, but I had fun doing them. And then finally, once you collect enough tokens in a world, there are some secret challenges that put your combat skills to the test, but I don't want to spoil them for you. Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope looks gorgeous. Just like the first game, the colours are vibrant and the characters are even more expressive. There's a great mixture of settings with the icy cold tundra of pristine peaks and the luscious fields of terra flora. Even within the worlds themselves, there's plenty of visual diversity, and some parts are simply gorgeous. There's a lot going on in the overworld, and in some cases there is too much going on. The frame rate constantly dips, especially when the weather effects come into play. At times in pristine peaks, the game will become extremely choppy. Now the game isn't fast paced or anything, so it doesn't affect the gameplay too much, but I would be lying if I said it didn't bother me at times. The frame rate mostly stayed stable during combat, and I didn't really notice any other graphical or frame rate issues throughout my 17 or so hours with the game. The all too common pop-in or level of detail issues that plague Switch games weren't an issue here. From an audio standpoint though, it's nothing short of phenomenal. Not only do weapons and combat have plenty of oomph behind them, the soundtrack is a masterpiece. And I mean, after the first game, it's no surprise that the soundtrack is as good as it is, but I adored every track in the game. I loved the calm overworld theme of Palette Prime. And then when the heavy battle themes start playing, they make the combat even more enjoyable. Just listen to this battle theme.
Swish! Ran the table!
There are even little throwbacks to famous Mario music like Mario Galaxy. And I loved how Rabbid Mario would play little tunes on his lute.
here.
As for the difficulty options, you can customise these to your liking. You can change how much damage the enemies deal and how much health they have, and you can also toggle on invulnerability and auto level up too, which is great. As a tactical RPG, Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope excels in making a truly customisable and freeform combat experience. As an adventure game, it creates great worlds that are begging to be explored, and as a sequel to one of the Switch's greatest games, it improved upon everything that the first had to offer. The narrative is stronger with a more serious storyline and expressive characters, leading to a satisfying and endearing conclusion. And from minute one, I was hooked on Sparks of Hope, and the game slowly builds on an already solid foundation, and that's why I loved it. There we have a review for Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope on the Nintendo Switch. I would love to know what you think about the game, and if you're going to buy it, let us know in the comments down below. Don't forget to check out the videos on the right, as we're going to have plenty of Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope content, and you may as well subscribe while you're at it. I really appreciate your time, and I'll see you all on the next video.